Oh, good God. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Friday. Another casual champion review. This is my 5th attempt at this now. I have had enemy junglers counter invading me the entire time. I have had 0-12 Yoni on my team. I have had games that were actually going well that ended in 15 minutes. This has been miserable. I think it's karma for me making nothing but casual champion reviews for 3 weeks running, but also that's just because Riot delayed the new skins by a patch, but also because I'm working on the big video right now. It's the longest video I've ever made. And hopefully it will be amazing when it's finally finished. You know what is actually amazing? Confirmed though. Fan art section. Look at all the Lee Sins, the monks. Oh, it's absolutely wonderful. It's nice to see Lee Sin in a different light. I'll be talking about the ASU a whole bunch in this video because I think it's very important, and it kind of sets a probably the title of the video that sets a scary precedent for ASUs going forward. But fan art section, as always, absolutely wonderful, amazing. Thank you, fellas, so much. You know, the nice thing, though, is that, like, even though I've got to do this 5 times, I get to appreciate the new model more. And he looks so much better now. Although I'm not really looking forward to having to explain his backstory for the 5th time. So, as a young lad, Lee Sin arrived at the Shojin Monastery in Ionia, proclaiming that the dragon chose him to wield its power. So, he basically just has a bunch of fire magic. I assume the dragon is just some powerful, specific spirit in Ionia. I don't know if they really go into detail on this, because there's tons of dragons in Runeterra. I guess this one's just special. Regardless, the masters recognized that he did have this power. They could see the fire in his eyes. But just like every single instance of super powerful people that are the chosen one with immeasurable, uncontainable power, they decide to hold him back, letting him do chores while his fellow students got to pursue their training further. And as always, the chosen one also has an ego. So he's like, why the hell are they holding me back? I'll prove to them just how strong I am. And he goes into the archives and steals a bunch of scrolls. And these scrolls show him how to properly tap into the spirit realm so he can use the power at his fingertips. And the next day he goes to his class and he starts to show off. He does a whole bunch of fiery kicks, and unfortunately it goes wrong and he paralyzes his instructor. And so for crippling one of his mentors, Lee Sin is outcast, banished from the monastery, and is left to wander the world on his own. So as Lee Sin wanders around the world in search for himself, in search of purpose, he eventually stumbles upon the Freljord, which I don't really know how that works. Like, that's on an entirely separate continent. Like, yeah, I got banished from the UK, so I just, I wandered the world, and, I ended up walking to Australia. But in the Freljord, he met Udyr, who was also suffering from a similar affliction. Udyr is also doing with untamable spirits controlling his body, unable to use his power correctly, so they form a bit of a bond and decide to help improve each other's lives. It's hinted a lot through Udyr's voice lines especially that this may lead to a more romantic kind of bond, though they haven't really explored that further. They didn't show up in Pride Month for this year. Last year was Graves and TF. Did they even have a focus this year? Regardless, they weren't there, so I think Riot's hesitant to go through with it, but it was introduced late. Personally, I do miss when characters could just be friends and not romantically involved, no matter what sex or gender they are, but that's coming from me, the guy who hates it in all varieties. But because of their bond, Lee Sin invites Udyr to go back with him to Ionia to further their training, and he agrees. And so they head back, only to discover that Noxus is in the middle of their invasion, and Lee sees his former friends dying around him. While he is inspired by Udyr's bravery to jump into the fray to help defend the monastery, Lee is hesitant to use his power again. But he realizes he's been left with no other choice and decides to invoke the dragon's fury once again, searing his flesh and burning the vision from his eyes. But now imbued with its power, he can fight off the Noxian invaders, and he does so kind of brutally. My crab. Did you guys know that they named a crab after Teemo? I just found out about that today. Oh, I will get you, little goblin. Oh, see there. Wait out the Q. I will not be made a fool by a gnome. I'm an expert. I am so good at this character. Unfortunately, because he still doesn't know how to control the dragon's fury, dispatching the Noxians is quite violent, and he ends up destroying pretty much the entire monastery in the process, despite being victorious in dispatching the Noxians. Not only that, because of prolonged use of the dragon's power, he has permanently lost his eyesight, so in shame for destroying the home that brought him in and raised him, and for losing his eyesight, losing control of the power again, believing he should never use it again, he decides to leave, wrapping his eyes in bandage and stumbling his way out of the monastery. But the elders who once banished him stopped him, and they said, well, you learn humility, my boy. Only the people of the most humble nature, the selfless nature, could control the dragon's power, and you have forgone your arrogance. With time, you could learn to harness the dragon's fury to its full potential. And that's kind of where Lee Sin's been left off. He's just stuck in Ionia, training to control the dragon's power, and his boyfriend went home, so that's sad. It's peculiar, like, I thought there was more to him, considering how popular he is, but also because I swear the origin was different. Maybe it changed when Udyr came out, because I couldn't seem to find anything of his previous incarnation, but I could have sworn him losing his eyesight and the whole paralyzing his teacher, those got separated into different instances in his story. Like, I could have sworn Lee Sin's story was him using his power, being reckless with it, and accidentally burning himself and burning his eyes. That's why he's blind. Like, he visually impaired himself by using his own power recklessly. Maybe I'm completely misremembering. That wasn't like it at all. I mean, his original lore, he had like a pet tiger or something. That was the main crux of his story. I think I just might be misremembering it because as Lee Sin currently is, for a character who's called the Blind Monk, it doesn't really do much for him. It's not exactly a unique concept either. The Blind Monk has been done 100,000 times. It confuses me because Lee Sin's blindness is more of a gimmick. It doesn't really impact him as a character. Kind of ironic he has so many moves that offer true sight when he's supposed to be blind. He doesn't really do anything that would imply that he has any kind of cop-out. Wow, I guarantee all my plays this game will be just as amazing as that. What I mean though is that like 90% of the time, a blind character in media, especially in superhero media stuff, will just have some kind of way to mediate their blindness. Like, oh yeah, they're blind, but they can still see everything. You fooled me for the last time, gnome. Just I'm an expert.
You had the confidence, but not the skill.
Like, Daredevil's got his radar sense, Kenshi's got Sento, Toph's got seismic sense. I like seismic sense. That has a bit more proper rules to it. She has to be in certain areas for it to be usable. That's the idea that these blind characters, they're not really blind. They can still see perfectly fine, just in a different way. As far as I know, Lee Sin doesn't have a cop-out like that. He can just do everything perfectly, be a perfect martial artist. No problem. It's also because, again, being blind doesn't really do anything for his character. Like, again, that's why I'm getting confused, because I could have sworn his story was about him blinding himself, instead of just like, yeah, it was just a side effect of using the power I've had for my whole life. Like, I would have thought the motivation of him becoming more humble and forgoing his arrogance, I feel like that was already pretty well done with him crippling his own instructor and destroying his ancestral, not ancestral, and destroying his adopted home. And also, like, why just his eyes? Why is invoking the fury of the dragon just affecting his eyes? I feel like a more appropriate thing would be that it burns his flesh. Like, he'd have visible scars and burn marks all over him. Like, did they mention anything about the dragon? That it's specifically like eye powers? Maybe it's like the Wuju spirit that Yi follows or something. I don't know. Gnome. You've fooled me for the last time. I will not be made a fool. This character's too hard for me. On to his design properly. I know there's been a point of contention that people don't think Lee Sin needed an ASU, and I have to say, you're wrong. Like, I get it. It's upsetting that pretty much all the popular champions are getting ASUs, like Ari, Teemo, Lee Sin. I'm sure the next one's gonna be Lux or something. And I get, like, Ari and Teemo, they look bad, but they don't look horrendous. Lee Sin looked horrifying. Excellent cleanse. Just excellent. Like, just shriveled, broken bones, his shoulders folding in on itself, his hair wrapped around his neck, making it look like, a word that I cannot say on YouTube. And Lee Sin makes sense as well, not just because he looked terrible, but again, he is very popular. One of the most popular characters worldwide, in fact, and in the East, in China, he is one of, if not the most popular characters there. And there's a reason that all the Lee Sin mains would only ever use his legendary skins or Muay Thai knockout, like any of the skins that didn't use his horrible, crusty old animations. So I think it was a great idea to give him one. I think he definitely needed one to actually look like a human being, but also because They probably would make money off his normal skins instead of having to make a legendary skin for him every time. It's not like there's not things to complain about, though. The ponytail inconsistency, I find it incredibly strange that the ponytail seems to be like the Warwick canisters type thing, where it's something they have to have consistent across all his skins, and they just kind of gave up for half of them. But the thing I find very interesting about Lee Sin's ASU is just how much extra work went into it. Oh, it taunts me. It taunts me so. Oh, I hate it! Dragon Fist is basically a $13.50 skin now. I think they actually do charge that much for it. But if you had it before, you guys, the price that it always was. Pool Party has that little cup animation. Knockout has even more special animations. It feels, honestly, if you just add some new voice lines to that skin, it would be a legendary. But I think the main thing as well, besides, like, he is oddly a lot more vibrant than he used to be in terms of color scheme. And actually, I completely forgot to mention, they also made him younger, which I think works better for the whole young student that's arrogant, trying to learn how to control his power. That makes sense. But Udyr is visibly much older than a lot of other men in League, and so having them side by side when you're hinting at the idea that they are romantically into each other makes a pretty large age gap and makes the whole dynamic slightly uncomfortable, I think. That was the bad thing I forgot, though. The good thing that I remembered is the sound design. Oh, I highly encourage you fellows to check out the dev blog where they talked about all the stuff that went into the Lee Sin ASU, because, like, you hear that? There's water effects if I use the E in the river. Huh? There's different sound if I hit multiple enemies, different sound if I hit a different kind of enemy. Like, it's crazy how much extra detail went into the audio aspect of this ASU, and it makes me wonder, is this what it's going to be going forward? Not just with ASUs, but new champions in general? Like, is this going to be something that Riot is going to invest in permanently to put all these little extra animation details, little extra sound design details into everything? And I think, no, probably not. Yeah, so this is my Lee Sin curse, by the way. This always happens. I either do horribly on Lee Sin, or I do really well at the start and then completely fumble the bag and I have no idea what to do afterwards. But the whole idea of this being the new standard for ASUs, I think, is a complete fabrication. I'll happily be proven wrong if Teemo has all these extra benefits as well, but I truly think this is just Lee Sin bias. This character is so unbelievably popular. I think Riot knew they had to put all this extra special care into it because they had to make sure one of their largest player bases was satisfied by chickens. They had to make sure one of their largest player bases was satisfied with this update. You know what? Yep. I'm an expert. But it sucks because now we know what Riot is capable of. I mentioned this in the Season Rewind video that is coming out eventually. How when Warwick released, it kind of set a new standard for what VGUs could be. Like, oh shoot, we don't need to delete champions anymore. We can just modernize them, make them better. And I think now with Lee Sin, it's like, wow, ASUs really can be this absolutely amazing. Stupid gnome. These ASUs can have all these extra special details, all these extra sound cues and visual effects. Now people are going to be thinking, well, when you update Teemo or Malphite or whoever else, I want all those things for my character as well. And I just don't think Rat's willing to do that. I think it's just because Lee Sin is that popular, he's going to get the special treatment. Again, I'd happily be proven wrong. I'm just saying, don't expect that to be the new standard going forward, even though it really should be. I can't. I'm so bad. I can't ward jump. Oh my god, I'm so terrible. No, actually, no. I'm an expert. This is a good time as any to transition into Lee Sin's gameplay because, if you couldn't tell by my immaculate skills, Lee Sin is quite difficult, which I think is really good, actually. Which I think is actually a really good thing, because for a good while there, I completely lost faith in Lee Sin. I hate his guts. He was everywhere. Everyone was picking him. He was so tanky, so mobile, did so much damage, and he just never ran out of cooldowns. Then all of a sudden, Season 14 happened, and it all went away. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. It's just like Udyr. That's coincidental. And also a lot of other champions. It was the items. Mythic items ruined the good name of this character. It completely compensated for all his weaknesses, making him tankier, do more damage, have lower cooldowns. He's not balanced. But now I think he most certainly is. I think as a core concept, his full... Oh my god, a cow. I think in his core concept, Lee Sin is incredibly well designed, because on a surface level he is very easy to understand with very simple abilities, but he's amazing in that he has a relatively low skill floor. It's not too hard to play Lee Sin for the first time, but trying to master Lee Sin takes a lot of serious skill and you can mess up tremendously. Like, as much as I've been memeing it this entire game, you can always tell when you mess up on Lee Sin. There's so much room for creative skill expression despite such simplistic abilities. It's like when I see a Yone or a Yasuo or Irelia or whatever, they have a million buttons they can do, I never feel impressed by any fancy plays they do. But Lee Sin always impresses me because it is simple, but getting a full grasp of that concept is really flashy and very interesting to look at, more so now because his model actually looks good to go along with it. So I'm happy. I'm happy he's like, what, a D tier champion now? He's got a pretty low win rate. Keep him that way. I like him better when he's fun, skill expressive, not top of the meta, not items compensating for all his weaknesses. I think he is great. My team surrendered. Knockout's his best skin now. Also like Pool Party and Dragon Fist. Thank you, fellas, for stopping by this week's Casual Champion. I cannot record anymore. I'll see you next week for Leona and Primordian or Animal Squad Rapid Fire Skin Review and big video soon. Okay, goodbye.